मन जाकर राखो जी गिरिधारी लाल मन जाकर राखो जी
This is episode 38. We are discussing the signs of a wise man. When we say man, of course, we always mean women included. Here, man is not, we are talking about a physical identity. The last two slokas 62 and 3, told us in summary and in 8 steps how this Maya works, how it begins, how is the objects of desires entice us, and ultimately lead us to our downfall or moral death. If we can recall those steps, first a beautiful image appears. The tendency of the mind is to repeat that beautiful image. Then if the image is allowed to reoccur, a liking grows. With the growth of liking, the wish to come close, to possess, appears. Any obstacle to this produces anger. The impulse of anger throws the mind into confusion, which casts a veil over the lessons of wisdom learned by past experience. Thus, deprived of his moral standard, the man is prevented from using his discriminative faculties of knowing what is right and wrong, and failing in this discrimination, he acts irrationally on the impulse of passion and paves the way to his moral downgrading or death. Now, this is what happens to us normally if our senses are not in control. We now are told in next 3 slokas, slok number 64, 65 and 66 and even 67. So we will be studying all this together as we go along, in which Lord is helping us how to come out of this chain of bondage and our downfall. There is always a way. There is this Maya, there is ignorance, there is this suffering, but Lord is always here to help us come out of it also. Rag dvesha viyuktestu vishayan indriyescharan atma vaishye videyatma prasadam adhigacchati. So here he says, if we are self-controlled, moving among the objects with senses under control and free from attraction and aversion, attains to tranquility. 2 things we need to note here. We want tranquility or peace of mind. Everybody wants peace of mind. Peace of mind does not come by achieving or obtaining the objects of desires, because they are going to take away our peace. So it is a reverse situation, that if we can overcome this attraction and aversion, sometimes we like it, then pretty soon we get tired of it, then we get angry about it, or we dislike it, and thus going up and down on the waves of liking and disliking due to the senses that transmit the images to our mind, we lose our tranquility. But in order to recoup our tranquility, we will have to control, Lord says, rag and dvesh. Really, these are the two words. If we don't have rag and dvesh, I think that we would have realized uh, God as we have been talking about. If we can only remember these two words and practice rag and dvesh, attraction and aversion, I think wherever there is attraction, there will be aversion. And where there is aversion, there will be also attraction. It is just two sides of a coin. So he is showing us the way to attaining tranquility or peace. प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्य उपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो हि आशु बुद्धि पर्यवतिष्ठते. And once we have achieved this tranquility, all sorrow is destroyed. If you recall, Arjuna is in sorrow. We have a lot of occasions of sorrow, and the only way to come out of the sorrow is to go over this attraction and aversion. For the intellect of a guy who is tranquil minded, he will be soon established in firmness. One of our problems is our intellect is not established in firmness. We are not steady. Very soon we take vows and immediately next moment we change. This is our fickleness of our mind, and that again goes back to the impressions that we have accumulated in our mind, the sense objects as we have been talking about. So if we want to recollect our discriminative faculties, which we need to do, then we will have to be tranquil minded, and to be tranquil, we will have to then go back to rag and dvesh, and we want to overcome those things as we have been told already. न अस्ति बुद्धि अयुक्तस्य न च युक्तस्य भावना न च अभावयत शांति अशांतस कुत सुखम. Now we see the steps. If you will make note of these sloks, you will figure out the steps to rise after we have fallen, if we have fallen, like we have said in slok 62 and 63. Then now Lord shows us a way to climb the ladder of self-realization or of peace. And he says, there is no knowledge, there is no real knowledge to a mind who is unsteady. And mind becomes unsteady due to objects of desires. And once our mind is unsteady, there is no meditation or there is no focusing. And to the person who cannot concentrate, naturally his mind in several directions, he would have no peace. So in order to have the peace, we will have to be able to focus, pay attention, and if we need to pay attention, then we will have to see that the mind is not split. As we have said, the five senses are acting like in Bhagavatam, Lord has said that they are like five wives who can destroy the person by moving him in five different directions. All of us are going into that thing if we don't control the senses. And once we are not meditative or we cannot focus, then there will be no peace. And if there is no peace, then there will be no happiness. If we want to really be happy, and all of us want to be happy, then we will have to climb this ladder starting from those objects of desires to be controlled, and then we will be climbing step by step. But those who don't do that, indriyanam hi charatam yan mano anuvidhiyate tadasya arati pragyam vayuhu navam ivam basi. If a person allows his mind to wander wherever the sense objects carry it, wherever his mind goes, he just follows them, then his wisdom will be taken away or washed away or destroyed, just like a boat that has no captain, and the wind which is going in all different directions like a storm, and if there is no captain, then the boat will be moving in various directions without any aim. There will be no progress, and there is a chance that it might be even drowned in the storm. So if we don't have a controlled mind and an intellect that can discriminate, then we don't have a captain to our boat. We don't have direction, And certainly when we don't have direction and captain, our journey cannot be completed or advanced. A pleasure loving man wastes his time in aimless wandering. He must have new clothes every time. He eats and drinks all the time different things for his taste, and his pleasure loving senses is so undisciplined that it seeks gratification wherever it can. Anywhere and anyhow, he will try to uh, acquire those pleasures, and thus he will enslave himself. We do experience that if we really even observe that without realizing, as soon as we come out of this sleep and we move in this world, we are always attracted in one form or the other. There is absolutely no peace unless, like Mirabai, we have one goal, that God alone is my husband, God alone is my friend, God alone is my lover, God alone is my caretaker or my master. And once we do that, then everything will be added to us, as Jesus said. So, if we have God in mind, that means if we have the principles that God has made, the laws that He has made, we can really enjoy this world, provided first and foremost we understand His laws, which Gita is enumerating, we do our best to observe them. Once we do that, all the happiness will be given to us. I don't think we need to worry how we will get it. Sometimes we don't know how medicine is working within our body. We just go ahead and take it because we have faith in the doctor. Similarly, if we have faith in God and in Gita or saints, we should go ahead and do what it says, and then see for ourselves whether the disease is gone. We certainly will be able to tell whether we are sick or not. We cannot say that we will not know after taking medicine whether it has worked or not. Same thing is true in our life. If we try to apply these principles to the best of our abilities, sincerely, without compromise, then if we can say what we have experienced, I am sure we will feel that we would have realized that peace. But because the purpose of Gita is to tell you the truth, to tell you the experiences of the saints, and to put us back on track of happiness which God wants. That's what God wants from Arjun, that if he fights these enemies within, then alone he will have peace. If he does not fight Duryodhan, I don't see how he is going to be ever happy, because there will be constant friction until those vices have been destroyed. So the Lord says, Tasmadasya ma bhavo nigruhitani sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhya tasya pragya pratishtita. Therefore, O Mahabhava, that is, Lord is reminding him that you have the power. You are not an ordinary person. Each and every one is an extraordinary make of God, and everyone, because he is within us, so we should try to feel comfortable that if Arjun is praised in spite of his weakness, then I think God will also, each and every one of us, will be uplifted in the same manner as Arjun. To God, he doesn't favor one against the other. Whoever listens to him, no matter what our past, we become his beloved or his devotees. So Lord says that if you control all your senses, nigruhitani sarvashaha, from all directions, all senses, once under our control, from the objects of desire, then his wisdom is established, as we are talking about Sthita Pragya, means the wisdom. And sometimes we have wisdom temporarily, but to have a permanent wisdom, we need to do a constant study, what we call abhyas, and that also helps us to overcome our attachment to the senses, what we call vairag, and detachment is only from that which causes us pain. We are not talking about taking away any happiness or real joy. We, throughout the Gita, what we are talking about is how to remove our disease. When we go to doctor, our sole purpose is how to remove the disease that causes us pain and suffering, so that we can then have our natural health which is our real nature, but somehow due to not either eating right or thinking right or acting right, we have caused ourselves pain. So, whatever we may be talking, we want to remember that there is singular purpose in our message, that each and every one of us who may have this disease of desires and suffering, and I don't know who can say that we are free from desires and suffering, then Gita is our mother, Gita is our doctor, and these are the medicine that is given to us, that we must control the senses. This is the crux. This is what every saint has done first and foremost before we can realize, because these senses are constantly uh, causing turbulence in us, and the turbulent mind cannot find peace. So Lord says that try to steady your knowledge, steady your senses, restrain from their objects, and these don't require money. It is just as free as possible. We don't even need to go to college or pay tuition fee. This is the knowledge each and every one of us at any level, any stage, man or woman, young or old, we can all practice this according to our status, our state of mind, our energy. Lord does not necessarily expect that each one will be doing exactly like others. He gives us an opportunity that everybody is different, like a patient. Every patient is different. There is no single medicine for all the people or all the diseases. So even the same person has different diseases at different time. So God has provided for all of us, depending on our inner feelings and our aspirations, our desires, our weaknesses. He provides us the medicine of practicing this disciplined life, which will then give us the stability that we really desire. Now, in all these 4 verses, he has talked about controlling the senses. All the 5 senses we have said: eyes, nose, skin, taste, hearing, and any one of these senses can derail our mind. So it is not that we will have to control one sense of taste or something, but we will have, and of course if we can control one sense, other senses necessarily have to come under control. If the mind is not coming under control, then other senses will disturb us. So when we say we have brought one sense in control, we necessarily say that all the other senses have also come under control, because it is the mind that we want to control, and if the mind is uncontrolled, then certainly one control or the control of one sense will not do. So we have to simply pay attention to a particular problem we may have, pay full attention to it, and if we can succeed in that, then all the rest will be taken care of. This is the beauty also of the mind, because it's the mind that is controlling, and we have a singular mind. And any sense that can control the mind can also help. Any sense that decontrols the mind can also help to control the mind. So these are the things we learn in these 4 slokas we have just enumerated. Slok 68 was the last one, in which God says that we have to be established, we should be strong, and we should not waver like winds or like waves in life. That is why he talks about Raga and Dvesh, because Maya is made in such a way that we will be always moving from one direction to other. We are never stable in the middle. Either we are down or we are up. We are never stable enough to not allow this temporary situation that comes in our life to rule us. And yet they do rule, because we do not practice the discipline that he wants us to do. There is no easy way to be happy. There must be discipline. And today's problems we see in the name of freedom or democracy, I think that we misuse our freedom, if we have any, and we become our own slave. We think of the physical freedom, but actually we are the slave of our own self. We have created our own prison, and yet we call that we are free to do whatever we want to do. I think that we should have Atma rule the body instead of the body ruling the Atman. It is like a horse riding us rather than we riding the horse. And these experiences that we have said again and again, we must, in our own interest and in our own happiness, we are not trying to help anybody else. First and foremost, for our own peace and joy, we are trying to do these things. So we are not obliging anyone. We are trying to help ourselves. We want to be happy, and these are the only ways. Had there been any easy way or alternate or options, Lord would have provided us. This is simply the disciplined life that alone is the path that will provide us the peace and joy we are looking for. Now, the slok 69 tells us the beautiful description of one who has realized God or who can realize God. Ya nisha sarvabhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyame yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. What is the night to every person or all creatures who think that there is a night or ignorance? In that night, the wise man keeps awake. In other words, the people think that taking the path of spirituality is darkness. They don't like it. They don't like to control themselves. They want to just run around and do what they want. But the wise man keeps awake, and he wants to make sure that he doesn't become a slave on those things or those objects of desires in which the creatures are running around. So there is always an opposite view. What the worldly people think is happiness, the wise people think is a cause of misery. And what the wise people call misery, the worldly people call happiness. Yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. So in this slok, the wise men, the path of wise men and the worldly are quite opposite, like day and night. So one time when somebody asked Gandhiji in a very simple way, how can he advise him or what will be his advice to advance in this stage, he simply said, go and practice on opposite to what your mind tells you to do. Whatever your mind tells you to do, just act opposite. Now, such an advice will be a strange thing, and yet the saints don't advise this without any purpose. What really it means is our mind is impure. Our mind is controlled by the passions. So what he says is that your mind wants to run after the passions, just do opposite to that. Just don't run after the passions and everything will be done. So there again, whatever the worldly people think they want to do, if they can be honest to themselves, if a thought came to me, well, suddenly I want to buy a car or I want to buy a house, and if you just without thinking do this, but go opposite to that, or at least calm down and use your wisdom, then I think we will have certainly found some peace and we will be saved from lot of anxiety and quick decisions that we make and suffer. So the least we can do, if we cannot go all the way to opposite thing, at least we calm down, we take time. If it is an emotional desire to achieve something, find out the right and wrong or the benefits and the losses, what payments you will have to pay for the benefits you may get. And if you really have the wisdom and guidance, you will be amazed that nothing is worth what it looks like. Whatever you buy, you are paying more than you think. And above all, we are paying the loss of our peace. This we don't think because we don't have the dictionary of the spiritual words. We don't understand this. But Lord here is telling us that pay attention to this. The world that is made is quite upside down compared to the spiritual life that God has made, and that is certainly what he is talking about in this law. A man who has thus achieved wisdom, how does he act? Slok 70. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarvesha shanti mapnoti na kama kami. Here it says that what happens, the wise man is like an ocean, deep, vast ocean, and the ocean is so deep that only on the surface you might see some waves, but underneath the waves he is quite calm and without any movement. And any rivers that enters into the ocean does not overflow. It is so large and so vast. His peace is so vast that any small rivers bringing in all the waves of that or extra water does not upset it or does not overflow. So just like a vast ocean does not overflow because of the added water of the rivers, similarly, a wise man, when he sees the objects of desires, he does not overflow. In other words, he doesn't get agitated, he does not get upset. They don't affect it, it simply digests it, just like the ocean will digest the river water. Similarly, a wise man will let the objects of desires come and go, but he will not be affected. Again, it is the same thing as rag and dvesh. We try to detach ourselves or stay balanced in aversion and attraction. That is what it says, that all the desires enter into our mind or our heart, but it doesn't affect us. So it is like a lotus in the water, though the lotus is in the water, is supported by the water, and yet it is untouched by the water. Similarly, we are in this world, we may remain in this world, and yet there is a way in which we can be unaffected by its ups and downs, and that is what we want. We want peace, and peace means unaffected state of our mind. So he said only that person can find peace, and not the one who is kami, in other words, who is the desirer of desires, who is always a slave of desires, who is always running after money, lust, and greed, as we have said, and then he will feel anger, as we have said, when he is not satisfied. These are the things that we want to watch, that it is not the desire of the desires that will find peace, but the one who overcomes these desires. Now then, Lord summarizes the entire message of Sthita Prajna in Slok 71. This Slok 71 has been very attractive, or it has kept in my mind, because when I first read it, when Mahatma Gandhi was sick and doctors had written off that he doesn't have much chance to survive, probably less than 24 hours. So everybody accepted that, including himself, and that last night he told all his followers who were around him, sitting around his cot when he was sleeping, lying down in the bed, he said that if I have to leave, that is what the doctors say, that is fine, but all of you pray, and I will also pray with this particular slok 71. This is what the slok they were praying all night. So let's pay attention to that. Vihai kaman yasarvan pumans charti nispruha nirmamo nirankara sashanti madhikachati. I would pronounce this again. Vihai kaman yah sarvan pumans charati nispruha nirmamo nirankara sah shanti madhikachati. This really summarizes all that we have been talking about. First he says that that man who lives devoid of longing, devoid of desires, abandoning all desires, without the sense of I and mine, the egoism and the ownership, just like Dhritarashtra, if you recall the first slok of this Gita when we started, these are our two enemies, I and mind, what is called mamta and ahankar. And here we say nirmamo nirankara means free from mamta or ownership and egoism. Once we can overcome that, then alone we will have peace. He obtains peace only when we overcome egoism and we overcome the ownership of this body. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.